Welcome back to United TV. We're going to be previewing Manchester United when we take on Chelsea tomorrow. I'm looking at the squad available, and myself, with a better. We're going to be having a bit of a challenge to put together a lot of different options. We will be looking at the available squad, and we will also be looking at a tactical board, what we can do in this match, what we're expecting from Chelsea as well. It's a tough game. It's a really important game. And Manchester United have big problems injury-wise, which is very frustrating because we're kind of down to the bare bones. We've got some suspensions. I've got Wiz a better on to go through this. How are you feeling at the moment in terms of? I know you're not feeling very well because you've been ill. How are you feeling with the situation that this is the available squad? This is the big story. It's not ideal, is it?
It's not, and it's if it's. I mean, you can write a stranger script. You've had Martinez come back from injury and then get suspended. You had Maguire who was suspended for one match, and then the FA decided to give him another match. So he's out. Martinez is out. De Ligt has been out most of the season. He's not coming back anytime soon, and so we were all looking at Euro and Heaven and actually asking, that's a young centre back pairing, and what is that going to look like? And so we were having that discussion, and then lo and behold, just a couple of hours ago, we're informed that Yoro has picked up an injury and that he won't be travelling to the squad. And there are some rumours that he's going to be out for the rest of the season, which isn't long, but it's 6 crucial games, which could decide our fate. We need a win tomorrow. That's the thing. And I think everything is starting to get stacked against us.
It's starting to look quite bad, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think looking at the situation, I think it's a bit worrying that we don't have lots of options now. That we've been talking about this for myself and you were talking about this for ages. That January came and went, and no reinforcements. And I was guessing that we'd get the odd injury, the odd suspension, but I didn't think we'd get a combination necessarily where suddenly two centre backs are out for bizarre reasons. One is the hair issue, and the other one is an extension for swearing when he got sent off. These are just individually they're quite weird, aren't they? And individually they're not things that normally happen. And then you look at it and think, wow, it's like these sometimes these things happen. And Manchester United, we were definitely not prepared for any eventuality. That this is like Ryan is spot on with this one. This is why not buying in January is starting to bite us. That we don't have where's the bench? Where are the options? We're having a situation now. I keep saying this a lot of times. We're having a situation now where we have to reshuffle players into positions that they're not really, they don't favour, and it is going to make it more difficult.
Yeah, it's so tricky, and it's kind of like you look at that squad, and De Ligt, Martinez out. They should have looked at that in January. Heaven's young coming in, Euro is young coming in, and so the only senior player we had was Martinez. They should have brought in someone just even to kind of get us through to the end of the season, because it's so important we get Champions League next year. Not only because we need football, we don't want to go another 24 days without a match, but we also need the money, and we also need the profile. So yeah, I suspect they're kicking themselves, but you and I both agree about this, Rich. They shredded the squad down to the bare bone, and I think they just went over the top. There are a couple of decisions that they maybe are regretting now. It's going to be an interesting match tomorrow. Looking at it, I think we still have credible players that can form that back line, but of course, it's not ideal. It really isn't.
United, I says, like, couldn't they have at least loaned someone? And I remember saying that I didn't mind a loan deal. And then I can't remember which player. There was a couple of players talked about in terms of being loan options. And I said this in January. We were talking about January, and I said when Collier got loaned out, I thought that meant we were definitely going to get somebody in because I would have kept Collier otherwise because we do need some backup and a little bit of depth. And he played a few games the season prior to that. It's just I feel it's like a gamble, and it's an unnecessary one that you're kind of gambling with how much money do you get if you qualify for the Champions League? We're talking like tens of millions.
Yeah.
and how much does it cost to get? Like sometimes when you look at we weren't talking about spending huge money, but when Spurs did this last season, Spurs paid, I think Mathis Tell, it's like a €6 million loan fee or something, and you have to pay some salary. But you look at that in terms of you spend a bit of money, you get some depth. But in all honesty, though, if Manchester United got some cover in January, I don't think we're sat here thinking they definitely have to play. We were kind of hoping they wouldn't have to play and we wouldn't need them. But it was one of these situations we talked about at length, and it doesn't make sense that they've gambled. They could still get lucky, but they're making it more difficult. And Stephanie's saying if anyone like has updates on Mainu as well, I thought Mainu was expected to be available. That's what I thought a couple of days ago. I don't know if there's any clarification on that situation that anyone's got.
I
We can
mean,
actually have a look at the travelling squad and see.
he did travel down, and that's the main picture that everyone's been posting. So he has travelled down, but it was interesting listening to his Carrick's press conference, and it did sound sketchy. It said he said we'll have to look at it. So I think he's taken him down just in case he's going to make the squad, but it may well be that he starts him and then brings him off in the second half, and then of course who do you bring on? You know, let's hope
You
it.
could be looking at Mason Mount, hasn't played much under Carrick, but technically, he's going to be quite stable in possession. He was actually playing okay at the start of the season. You look at that, and then otherwise you got Fletcher, and you just look at this and think it's getting a bit worrying. The thing that made me not laugh, but just think four goalkeepers, great, well done. We've got four goalkeepers going there. It's just that, but to be honest, when you look at the goalkeeper list, only one of them is actually going to be one that we'd want to see playing. Like any of the other options, there's no way. So our squad is starting to look paper thin is kind of like not exaggeration at all, is it? So,
Yeah,
but looking at this, like the good news is that Mainu's gone there; he's travelled, so that's positive news. And you'd hope that even if Mainu is, if it's a little knock and he's okay to start, that's excellent because you got Mainu, Casemiro, and then possibly you could have Mount coming. I'd be bringing Mount on rather than Agate. I think at least he's technically good and he's not going to panic under pressure, and also he's going to want to do something against Chelsea for sure.
yeah. Third time lucky. He's twice he's played against them, and twice he hasn't won. And he's got jeered off a couple of times too. So yeah, let's hope that this time it is first time lucky. Nothing is inevitable. We could look at that squad. We could think, oh God, this is going to be tough. But let's not forget, this is a Chelsea side that is shipping in goals. It is shipping in goals. I think under Maresca, they'd only lost 3-0 by 3-0, 3 goals or more once. Under this, under Rossiner, they seem to be doing it almost every week. So there is opportunity there. Look, our back line may be off, but our attack is still there. If Mainu is fit, we've got our midfield back too. So that's where that's where we can win the game. So I know it looks precarious on paper, but if I look at that back four, there are players there with a wealth of experience that if they perform on their day, should be good enough.
See, when you look at this, do you remember January? Just to kind of go over the situation in January, we got the attacking players there. You got Sesko, Cunha, Armadillo. Okay, maybe not so much Xerxes, but you got Mbuemo. Lacey's an exciting talent, and this is like since January we've lost Dorgu, but he's going to be back quite soon. We've actually we were talking about spending big money in January on an attacking left-sided player, and I was
Yeah.
looking at the squad thinking we could end up with having like two or three players that could play in that role, and it just seems that they kind of know what pieces we need, but they're not doing it in the right order sometimes. And welcome Elliot to the chat. He says we can't even field two centre backs, and we might have been a bit unlucky, but to be honest, the way the squad was arranged, if we got one or two injuries in any position, we would suddenly start having gaps in our squad. So the fact that it's centre backs is just the no, it was going to be some. It was going to happen somewhere. It could have been midfielders, which I think it is pretty close to being midfielders. It could have even been like a situation. I mean, if we look at Binder, Heaton, etc., we can at least be thankful it's not Lamans that's injured.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how Hayden plays. The only concern I have about Hayden is I remember when he came into the squad previously. Do you remember when he had that run of games? And I think the first game, I think he got booked. I think it was against West Ham, and he got booked within the first 5 or 6 minutes. And he was quite shaky. In the second game, a bit less shaky. And by the third game, he started to come into his own. So I hope that he hits the ground running. He needs to hit the ground running tomorrow. He really does. But that's the only thing he's been out of. He hasn't started under Carrick. I think he was running. He was playing all the way up to. I think he even played under Fletcher. But then I think once Carrick came in, he's been dropped for Maguire, which is fair enough because Carrick wants to look for experience and the team that's going to get him over the line. And in doing so, he's been dropped. I just hope it's not going to be a case of he needs a couple of games to get in. I hope it's not going to be a Mazraoui performance that we had last week, because Chelsea will come at him. João Pedro will come at them. It's going to be tough.
It's going to be difficult, isn't it? Should we put together possibly like a bit of a lineup and see what people think in terms of what options we have?
Yeah.
So I'll be jumping in. I won't be able to see people's comments, but I'll be interested to know. Should we start with the back four? Because that's going to be obviously the issues we've got. I've got a few people here that we can put in. Obviously, we're not going to put him in the back four. I mean, I know sometimes our managers like to experiment, but I mean, that's definitely not going to happen. We're going to have to bring in Mr. Luke Shaw, I think, into centre back situation. So what do you see with the options regarding Casemiro is going to be?
So for me,
sure.
I look at the back four, and I think there's two ways that you can go. So the back four that definitely need to be included, of course, Mazraoui, Shaw, De Ligt, and Heaven. Malacia can stay on the bench, and let's hope he remains there for the duration of the game, which means that we don't have any injuries.
Are you thinking Luke Shaw, Heaven, Dalot, Mazraoui? That's probably.
I'm tempted. I'm tempted to keep Heaven as left centre back, keep Shaw as left back, and play Mazraoui as right centre back, because I think he may perform better as a centre back than he has just on the last game as a fullback. That's what I'm probably likely to go for, because that way three players retain their place rather than moving them around. And Maz has played right centre back before, and he's played in a back three before. I know the talk is he plays better in a back three than back two. I'm not totally convinced that's entirely true. I think he's got the quality enough to play as a right centre back, and that way you have a right footed player playing with a left footed player. Otherwise, it becomes quite heavy in the middle of the pitch. So that's what I would prefer to go with. What's your view?
It's an interesting one, actually. I was when I first thought about it, I was thinking maybe using similar logic but different players. Because I was thinking in terms of like maybe Luke Shaw is likely to play as a centre back, and I was just thinking, in a back three. And when we did play a back three, I mean, what if we played a back three? I don't think we will. But if we're looking at trying to move things around, then in terms of a back three, Mazraoui, Luke Shaw, Heaven could be three options. I'm not saying that's going to be. Yeah, I'm not going to say that's going to be the best case scenario, but potentially, maybe they do look at that. That is something that I haven't really considered until just now. That maybe they do think maybe we could play with back three. One thing for sure is that when we looked at this, probably a long time ago, I think the back three options we considered, Mazraoui is often talked about as being one of the best players. Now he was in good form, wasn't he, at the start of the season?
Yeah.
And maybe one of the players we put as in the back three. I'm trying to think who it would have been. It might have been De Ligt, YORO, and Mazraoui, as we thought might have been our best back three at one point. And Luke Shaw was obviously pushing a bit further forward, and Dalot was a bit further forward on the other side. So I don't know. It's not. I think it's up for discussion, I suppose. I'd be interested to know what other people are thinking. I don't mind that. I would probably say I think they might lean towards putting Heaven alongside Dalot, maybe, or actually maybe I think maybe putting Luke. I see what you mean about changing things around. It's difficult, isn't it? Because on the spot, I'm just thinking, I can see the logic. I'm not sure. The thing is, there's a couple of options. And I mean, Heaven's not played much recently, so maybe they're thinking to put him or there. And if you got the experience of Luke Shaw in his natural position, Dallo there, and you kind of hope that might be actually not too bad.
Yeah. Uh,
Apparently, unpopular opinion, but I'm just going to read it and see if it is unpopular. But you got, say, playing a 3-4, say 3-1-4-2, where you've got a back three. It looks like there of say so you got Shaw, Heaven, Mesrari, and you got left wing back as Ahmad Jallo. And I think that's what we said that potentially that's what I said. It could potentially be an option. Then you've got Mainu Castamiro, Bruno Fernandes. Your attacking is really good though. Like your attacking is good. You got Cunha and Buemo, Sesko up there. He's saying no inverted players that he would like to go for. I
yeah.
probably
I was going to say that's not bad. I'd probably swap Cunha and Ahmed around to keep them in their correct size. So Ahmed would probably be right wing back for me, and Cunha would be left wing back. But yeah, that makes sense.
that might be that I know that they're probably going to be inverted anyway. But I think this was one way you could look at it and say there is potential options there. I think. Do you remember when we were having this conversation months ago, and we said we didn't really like the formation that was being used at the start of the season. And to be honest, like some of the arguments we made then were that the squad isn't really suitable for playing that. Maybe once we get a few injuries in specific positions, maybe there's an argument to be made that maybe a different formation would work in this circumstances. That it's just like hopefully one game, and it's not ideal, but yeah, we'll have a look at this is one where people in the comments can make their opinion known, and we'll put it in the chat and see what people are thinking. And welcome, Bilal, to the chat. There's literally no wrong answer, is there? It's just what do you think? And in terms of like, I mean, the fact that you suggested this is quite thought provoking for me. And then I thought maybe three at the back. This might be one of those times where if Man United got a draw, I would never say, I'd never advocate playing for a draw. But if the game's a bit boring and we get points from this game, I wouldn't be particularly distraught. I think it's one where the circumstances are unfortunately the circumstances. You've got to get the best out of what the situation is.
Yeah, exactly. And with I mean, look, I said I'd never want to see three at the back again. But look, sometimes you've got to look at what you have available and try and make sure you capitalize with the players that you have and change the formation. And that's what makes a good manager. And what is interesting about that three at the back with the wing backs is that both Ahmad and both Cunha love to run into space. So it gives them that opportunity. They're sometimes hindered by doing that if they're as cams and lambs and rams. So it allows them to run in and to run at players. So that could be a tactic. The question is Carrick courageous enough to do that? And that's the thing I keep hearing when I look
You know,
at
you know what? Sometimes I think that sometimes when you talk about sort of pressure and adversity, it's sometimes with I've said this a lot of times that you never really find out about your players and your team when you're winning. It's just
yeah.
you keep winning, and in some way, this might sound strange to some people, but in some way, it's almost like if we get through this, we might look back and think actually, it would be quite good if Michael Carrick got tested in this circumstance where you have to appreciate that I'm a Man United fan that's watched the team for decades, and this is the first time, maybe the last couple of years, where we seem to be actually running out of players in certain positions. So if you want to see how well Michael Carrick does when we pick up some injuries in the Champions League, we have to approach a difficult game on the weekend. This is the scenario, isn't it? Chelsea, we know they've got form problems, they've got discipline, but looking at this comment on the screen now, they've got a very strong midfield. That's something that we're a bit weak in, and this is one where I think Michael Carrick can be. Michael Carrick can actually prove to some people that think he hasn't got the ability. I think he has got some ability. I think it's just going to be very um, interesting to see that if it's not just Carrick's decision, is it? It's not just Carrick's decision. It's also going to be the coaches behind the scenes, what they think is a good strategy. But quick question to people watching is I'm going to say all suggestions welcome about what you want to see, but Michael Carrick putting his boots on and getting Johnny Evans on the pitch as well is probably not going to happen.
He's got Woodgate in his squad too.
Oh, do you remember the game against Chelsea in 1994? And apparently, Alex Ferguson pre-match said, "If we keep it tight and score the first goal, we're going to win the game." And his exact words were, "If we score the first goal, Glenn Hoddle's going to bring himself on as a substitute, and he's going to play, and there's going to be no legs in midfield, and we're going to run through and win like 3 or 4 nil easily." And I haven't rewatched the game, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly what happened. That he brought himself on as a sub because he couldn't sit there and watch. And I think with this one that Man United, this game, I don't think if we give away the first goal, I'm going to be pretty worried because we are going to be under pressure and potentially, given like the lineup, I'll move people around a little bit to sort of. I was thinking you have Mazraoui there, and then I guess we're not going to have Luke Shaw there, are we? It
Mm.
it would probably be this. That's what people are thinking. I mean, I
Yeah,
think Aiden Heaven is actually a pretty good considering his experience, which is pretty small amount in terms of Premier League. I do agree with what you're saying that he looks pretty good defensively, like physically strong. I
yeah,
think that the only thing that's missing from him is just experience, which he's not going to have at this point in his career. He's missing a lot of experience, and I think he got caught out of position a few times, and that might be why he got a yellow card early on. That he just fouled out of position. I think it was something along those lines. But so I'll go through the comments. So can I answer a question in a yes or no? Is Carrot courageous or not? I don't know. Is it a yes no question? What are we basing it on
it's
at the
difficult.
moment?
Yeah, it's difficult to answer in just a yes or a no.
We might find out. You can ask me on Saturday after the match whether he's gone brave. I don't know. I think the Leeds game was a bad game to talk about. I'm just trying to. Other examples worked out pretty well. So yeah, Elliot's making a fair point that in terms of like playing with a back three, Shaw was good, Mazraoui was good. We'd be asking quite a lot for Aiden Heaven, and I think this is going to be something that if you're Chelsea, do you think you're looking at this thinking, great, this is a good opportunity? So I think Man United need to really make sure the midfield is functioning pretty well. So we're going to have to look at. Do you think this is going to be one where Seska's on the bench and we look at packing the midfield?
Yeah,
I mean, how do you see the? I'll put some more players on the pitch. So if people, that's
I think it is going to be one where Sesko comes off the bench. I think we need options. We need game changers on the bench too, and I think Sesko is going to provide that. But I think also, I think I've had this feeling about United for a long time. We need an extra man on the pitch. We
almost
needed,
got a 4-4-2 going on. I'm just looking.
yeah.
Maybe we could call it a 4-2-2-2, and then
But
but I
that's what
think Bruno
that's
needs to
what
be carrying
yeah.
threat in this game because I
It
don't
is.
think Sesko should be. I guess Mbeumo will always be that side.
It is like a 4-4-2, and he does do that. He takes Bruno just behind Mbuma, and they attack together. So I think that's probably going to be the team or the shape at least that he goes for. I think he will stick to a back four. I think he will have the pivot of Casemiro, Mainu, and then Bruno just ahead, and Ahmed and Cunha uh, coming up, and then Mbeumo sneaking in with that lovely ball that they put over the top or a deft pass into his feet. Yeah, they don't do it over the top with
I think he
Mbeumo.
might have the work rate tracking back that might be essential to start the match, and I would say
Yeah,
out of possession, which we have to probably be realistic and assume that we'll be out of possession a reasonable amount, then we're going to be in this like we're going to be in a 4-4-2 type thing, and we actually could be quite. This is going to be one that's we need to be really organised, and I'm hoping that Main is available, and like Casemiro actually, in terms of like defensive, like winning his duels, he will be a key player. That's why I don't think. I think with Mainu that if you're actually going to be winning the ball back, you can't give it away quickly. And I think Maynard might be key here in terms of actually linking play. I know people will look at what he's going to do attacking wise, but I think he might be quite key in terms of linking up the play. And I think Mbeumo's got to start in this match 100%. I just think if Sesko was starting this match, he might end up being a bit isolated up front, which is what we saw against Leeds. And I think Mbeumo is someone that will naturally be a bit deeper as well. That's kind of my guess, actually, in terms of if everyone's available, I would be thinking this might be actually probably not. Yeah, probably something like that. What do you think? I think when it's on paper, people probably be looking at it as being a 4-2-3-1. But I think imagining most of the time we won't be in possession, so we'll probably be dropping back a little bit.
Yeah, and they'll have like Pedro as a striker. They'll probably have Neto, Palmer, and Estevao as the cam right and left cams, and then they'll probably have Casado in there, maybe Santos alongside him, and they'll have Cucurella on the left side, Costa on the right, and Fafana and Heitu in centre backs. I mean, I look at their team, and on paper it looks great, but they just haven't been playing as a team. I look at my team or our team, and I kind of think there's enough there to get something at Stamford Bridge. And considering their form, I think we could almost nick it. I think we could nick it. We just need to be disciplined. We need to fight for every ball. We need to do something we didn't do in the first half against Leeds. We need to fight for every ball. We need to get to every ball. We need to get to every second ball. If we show a bit of passion and fight, there's no reason why we can't get it. There's enough quality. If I look at that squad, there's enough quality there for us to get something. I mean, Rich, more or less, we've been playing with these players. The only thing that's changed is Maguire isn't playing in the back. But, Delo's come in before. Heaven has come in before. Maz has come in before. Shaw's been a constant. So I don't worry too much about that. I know Heaven's performances have been good. He's a conductor. That's the other thing. He's going to find those line-breaking passes, something that Martinez used to do. So I always thought that when Martinez got injured, that Heaven should have been the person that came in instead of
Heaven's
you.
actually is actually very comfortable on the ball in midfield as well. So that is another positive. I would look at this and say if you're looking at what we've got on the bench, if we start with this lineup, then you got Mason Mount on the bench, who I think given how many minutes can Casemiro play, it might depend on how well we manage the game. That's why I'm thinking we might try and be quite compact in a lot of this game. Maybe we start this game a little bit like we did against Arsenal, where just make sure you don't give away anything stupid and gradually ease yourself into the game. And I don't think Benjamin Sesko would be expecting to get much joy in the first sort of 30 minutes anyway. That's why I would say I would be unbelievably surprised if Sesko starts this match. I think that you'd have Mbeumo there to kind of like try and uh, win the ball back if he can, do his defensive work as well off the ball. Man United just don't give away anything stupid in the first half. And I think Mason Mount might be somebody that would be not a bad substitution if you're looking at managing possession, which you'd think once you've got a few technically good players on the pitch, then I wouldn't be looking at him to come on and change the game. And I'm thinking if you're looking at match winners, maybe Sesko would be one of those people to bring on if the game opens up a little bit and you can look at Sesko's got a lot of pace, but it might be that it's not ideal to start with him. That's kind of my guess with this one. I think what's interesting about Chelsea is when you look at what they've done this season, they're in a terrible run of form. So I know we're looking at our own problems, but they lost 3-0 at home to Manchester City. They're shipping goals left, right, and centre. This probably is the worst run of the season. Their manager looks a little bit out of his depth at the moment. And I was thinking the one positive United have got is, and when was on a bit of a ropey run of form, on Majolo, you'd say, okay, it's not been creating or scoring loads of chances, but as a team, we're scoring loads of goals. Like even okay, we lost to Leeds, really disappointing. But I don't think we've had games where we haven't scored for a while now, and even like disappointing draws we're having disappointing 2-2 draws, aren't we? We're not having 1-0 defeats. So I think if Chelsea scored, United have got potentially a lot of goal scorers in the team. And when was going to score at some point, and Casemiro is a goal threat, Cunha, Bruno, goal threats as well. I think the only thing we're kind of missing, I suppose, is we don't have the. It's quite handy with people like Maguire who are also a bit of a goal threat and also good defensively in the air. So
Yeah,
I don't think it's as bad like you said. When you look at it, it's essentially one player missing, isn't it? If everybody was
yeah,
available
yeah,
and we played Heaven alongside Maguire or Yoro alongside, actually Yoro alongside Heaven was what we were expecting.
yeah.
I don't think it's that's not going to decide if we win the game, is it? Because they're not going to be contributing too much attacking.
Exactly. I mean, Heaven and Euro literally are like for like in terms, but they bring different qualities, and so like we say, the only player that's missing is Martinez from Mazarawi. So I think there's enough there, and I agree with you. Look, and BMO starts. Ahmed will probably play for about 65 to 70 minutes. He then comes off. Seska comes on, and Buma goes to the right. They all keep their defensive duties, and then we get the ball over to Seska and sneak in a second or third goal, hopefully.
What do you think of this genuine question from Berber? He says, "Would you take a draw now?" He said, "I hate this way of thinking." And there's some people that question was asked before the Leeds game, and when we were 2-0 down, I would have definitely taken a draw then. At the time, I was like, "Well, I think we should be looking to win this game." This is a game where I saw another comment that said it could be a 0-0, could be like a 5-4. Do you remember that game when I think we might have given away a stupid penalty to lose it? But did we lose like 4-3 to Chelsea a couple of years ago, where it was ridiculous goals being scored and conceded, and there's not a lot of difference between these two teams either in terms of like performance week in week out. That Chelsea have been, over the whole season not looking great for a lot of it. Would you take a draw? I mean, like Ryan said he hates his way of thinking, but you did ask the question, Ryan.
No, 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 and I understand what he means because look, we want to be winning every game, but sometimes you look at a match and you think, what's
It's
the
because it's
outcome?
like I think it's because of the league position that Chelsea are in. So I'm just going to quickly check the points difference. Like we have 6 more games to go, and at the moment we are actually a nice 7 points above Chelsea. Chelsea have got 3 straight defeats in a row. They've been dropping down the league a bit. I think 5 teams are going to get definitely Champions League football, possibly 6, but definitely 5. And if Man United got a draw and maintain that gap of 7 points above Chelsea with like 5 games to go, I think there's an argument where it's disappointing. Like we want to finish as high at the table as possible, but then we'd have to go into the games and go, right, we've got difficult game against Brentford, difficult game against Liverpool. Sunderland feels like the game that we've got to win to kind of like cement things, and then we've got Forest as well. If we could pick up 4 points out of those 2 games, that might be where we've got it. We don't want to lose to Liverpool, and it'd be great to get points or win against Brentford. I'm kind of like I hate myself saying this. I might take a point. I mean, how do you feel?
I think it's a really good question. So for me, look, it's tricky. We've only won one. Look, if we get a draw, nothing changes between us and Chelsea, and we need to keep that buffer so that it at least does that, and so they don't gain on us. The other side to it is we've only won one game in the last four. If we don't win tomorrow, it's one win in the last five. That starts to creep in to players' minds. There's been a lot of criticism already about what are we doing, and I think those that want to go down that road of criticism, they're not going to look at the fact that we've had key players out. They will look on performance, and even if it's because we've got key players out, we had this performance, they will still look to that. And so it's a difficult one. Ideally, I think tomorrow is a really precarious game. If they lose it, I think we're in a difficult place. What then happens to our players going forward? If we win it, we've won in the greatest adversity to a degree. We've come in with really restricted number of players, and we've found a way to win. And that's what I want from these players: find a way to win. I would. No, do you know what I'm going to say? No, I want to win. I think we need a win. I think we need to get back onto the winning. I think we need that mentality back. I think we just need to find a way to win. There's enough quality on that pitch for me to say you can find a way to win against a team, like you say, that's been shipping goals. It's been shipping 3, 4, 5 goals
You
over
can
the last
imagine,
6
can't
games.
you? If we get this win, which and I'd be relieved, but I think it would be a really good win. And this is going back to like decades of sport Man United that Chelsea is a very difficult game. Like even the best Man United team, you could probably argue that Chelsea also had a better team at the time. But given the current standing of the club, that we beat Chelsea early on in the season, but we never really got to find out how we matched up against them 11v11 because the sending off was so early in the match. And it felt like because we got the second goal, we did play quite well in the first half, but because we got the second goal, then we were kind of played within ourselves in the second half. I kind of expected more from Chelsea when it was 10v10. And I thought Chelsea disappointed me a bit in that on that regard. But when you're looking at it now, 11v11, then I don't see why Man United should be worried about. No, we got some. We're talking about a centre back pairing as being our issue, but you could look at it and say if everybody else is available, our attack is a lot more potent than Chelsea's this season, in my opinion. I think that
Yeah.
Chelsea, when I'm looking at transfer news, Chelsea are linked to centre backs, and you look at it and think they should have done that years ago. Like that they've got weaknesses in their team. Their goalkeeper is a bit error prone sometimes. Their centre backs sometimes you look at that they try and play the ball out from the back, and you can like and when we can press them, win the ball back. You never know. That's kind of one option because I remember against Chelsea about a year ago, where I think Garnacho missed not an open goal, but a pretty great chance. And we kept because we won the ball back high up the pitch against Chelsea. They play the ball out from the back, and their defenders are not always great in possession. So there's issues they've got that make me think United can hurt them. And in the same way that you look at our team and think, we have got some issues. We've got a better goalkeeper now, which hopefully was is going to help a little bit regarding that one. A bit, Lamans is young, but it feels a bit like he's got a more commanding presence. And if you look at the rest of the players, Mazraoui, Shaw, and Dallo are very experienced. I think it should. Aiden Heaven knows what this is about. I think he's growing into the team a little bit since he's made his debut.
I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm not worried about the back four. I think where I'm worried about is if Mainu isn't fit enough. If Mainu isn't fit enough, I think that's when it becomes a bit more difficult to devise a game plan. Because if Mainu goes out, who then comes in? And that's quite an interesting question because we don't know yet whether he is going to be fully fit.
I think that do you agree with that though? Someone made a point early on saying about the midfield battle, and I think what it is here is that you look, let's say you got a Mainu Casemiro, and that's why I was kind of dragging us into the sort of defensive position where I thought we played really well against Arsenal in
Yeah.
the first 30 minutes, where Arsenal were monopolising possession and we made ourselves hard to play against. Against Man City, we did the same thing, where we were in a very organised position. I think actually Van Nistelrooy set up his teams as well. And it's 4-4-2 in defence is pretty standard for a lot of teams. Then I know that people will say that get a bit obsessed by formation, but 4-4-2 is pretty standard out of position for a lot of teams. And if we do that, then I think we've actually got a good basis that these are probably key players, like you said, Mainu and Casemiro. If we had Agate there, then I don't know. No, this game isn't just about Agate, but you start looking at vulnerability where, if he wins the ball back, what's the first thing Agate is going to do? Is it to give the ball away again? Sometimes he looks a little bit like he's a bit panicky, whereas I think with Mainu, you notice him when he's not playing. That's a positive. I'll say that when he's not playing, you'll notice that there's a lack of control. That's why maybe a question for you: if Mainu's not available, would you start Mount over Agate?
Um, just quickly to entertain Jeff Fredrickson is still injured, but I don't think they would have started him in this match. The one thing that Mount will have, Casemiro can play the deeper role, and what Mount will be able to do is link up, give and go. He'll be able to do all of that. He'll be able to to tackle. He'll be creative going forward. He'll be defensive as well going forward. I think he could play that role quite well. I don't worry too much. He's had a lack of minutes. When I was listening to Carrick's presser, he said he's still on the road to getting fit. So I don't know if he would throw him in, or I think he would bring him in slowly. I think that's what he's been doing. That's why we haven't seen so much of him. I think he can. Yeah, I agree with you. Certainly, he could do that role. I always thought he could do that role. Um, I just don't think he's going to be fully fit to do that role. That's the unfortunate thing, and I think that's where it becomes difficult in terms of who then plays alongside Casemiro. Does that mean that Bruno comes in deep? And if you bring Bruno in deep, we lose all creativity. But then you could have Cunha. But then if you bring Cunha in there,
This was a suggestion about if you move Bruno back
yeah,
in. I mean, we're talking about moving Bruno back, but at least we're not talking about having the same issue that we had before of like trying to play three at the back, and then maybe Mainu. Sorry, maybe Mason Mount is then the Bruno position.
Do you
Um,
remember? Do you remember when Mount was fit and we were playing exactly this formation, and Bruno had one of his best games, a couple of his best games, because he suddenly became much more disciplined, and there was much movement from our front five really. So it was. I think there's possibility there. I just hope he's fit. I think that's the only thing. I think Carrick is really kind of easing Mount in. And I know he said in the last game, because we're having so many chances, that he didn't think to bring him on. I still think I see him more as someone coming off the bench. But then sometimes you've just got to go with it, don't you? You've just got to
no,
say, look,
this could be a lineup if you're making a substitution, protecting a lead, possibly
yeah,
that given like you're not necessarily expecting an impact from Mason Mount, but Mason Mount had a really good impact in a Europa League match last season when him and Armadillo came off the bench. But
scored
you'd
it.
probably be looking at if you want to bring someone off the bench to get you a goal, then Sesko might be the player you're looking at. I think with Mason Mount, then
There's
it
a
depends
cracking
how many.
goal, isn't it?
Yeah, it could be. Do you think it's like about? It might come down to. I'm guessing that Mainu can take part in the game, but I don't know whether he can start. So I don't know whether if Mainu could play 60 minutes or half a match, then I don't know what the best case scenario is. That you do you look at going? Do you start Mainu and think right? How long can you go? Because
Yeah.
I'm thinking with this one that ideally ideally Agate isn't going to be featuring this match. Like from my point of view, but I could see why maybe he might have to.
The
Or
thing,
would you look? So
sorry.
I was thinking Casemiro. Is Casemiro going to hit the wall? Like he played on Monday, and we've got a game on Saturday. But he was quite poor when we played a game like quite quickly. I think it might be the Newcastle game.
Cassie needs to pull his socks off. He's played 3 matches for Brazil in a row, 90 minutes each time. So I think he can do it. I think he should be fine. And I would keep him on the pitch as long as you can, if not for the whole game. But look, Carrick is pragmatic, and he will look at Mainu, and he will look at 6 games. Remember, this is 6 games that may prove whether he can be the permanent Man United manager. So he's not going to risk. He's going to look at one game and think, if I play Mainu and he gets another injury, that could be him out for the next 5. So, I think he will do the same with Mount, and he will do that the same with any of his injured players or those that are returning to fitness. And I think that's where the problem comes. How is he going to look at this match tomorrow? Is it just about getting through it, and like Berber said, he'd take a point, and like you said, or is he going to be a bit more courageous and say we take this one game, and you just need to get the points on the board now, because we don't know what's going to happen in the next game anyway. So it's a difficult one. I kind of err on the fact that I think he's more pragmatic, and he won't risk players because he wants them for the full 6 games, only because it impacts where United may finish. Losing Mainu for one game is a completely different context to losing him for 6. And so I don't think he risks it. And I think he's done the same strategy with Mount. It really depends how unfit he is, really, if he's what the injury is like.
Now, do you remember we talked about this a little while ago, where it might have been yourself or somebody else on the channel said that when it comes to the end of the season, we've got a World Cup coming up, and we basically got a midfield players of like Mainu doesn't want to miss the World Cup because he comes back from injury too soon. Casemiro might be playing within himself because he doesn't want to be missing the World Cup. Bruno Fernandes, he might be playing in a team that is a dark horse to do quite well in the World Cup. I'm not saying that, if you're looking at it from a player point of view, then if you're thinking right, you got to put your you got to put your body on the line to try and get third or fourth, where they might think, oh, okay, we've got another game next week where we could win if we don't win this one. Whereas
especially if
if you
you're
miss,
especially if you're off in the summer anyway. So that's
yeah, exactly. I don't think Agate is going to be thinking, I'll put my body on the line to try and get fourth in the Premier League. And like, there's no way Agate is going to be playing for Man United next season. Bruno Fernandes is 50-50. Casemiro definitely no. Mainu probably is. So it's not an ideal situation, is it? Because I think these players will probably be hoping that the Premier League, let's say Champions League, is wrapped up by now, and these games aren't as important. It's the same for Chelsea as well. That when you
exactly.
got
Yeah. I was going to say that I think and I think that's an issue. If I mean, we might be doing these players a complete disservice. We may well be, but if that is what's going on in players' minds, it's going on throughout the Premier League.
Yeah,
So
no, I was just saying that. Like Stephanie said, I think sometimes if you try and play timidly, you're going to get injured more, and that's true. Like it's injuries are freak injuries, aren't they? And actually, when you look at it, sometimes it's just players running, and it's not necessarily physical contact.
yeah, Enzo's back, isn't he, for this game?
In terms of like dropping back in midfield, then comment saying that Mount is better than Bruno. I would say that I would say you lose too much from Bruno if you move him back, as well as another way of looking at it. I think if you look at Mason Mount further forward, Bruno behind him, I'd switch him the other way. I think Mount can link things quite effectively, and as long as you've got compact shape, I don't think neither of them are ridiculous in terms of like the ground coverage, particularly that recently. So it's, I think it's looking like I don't think there's going to be many surprises.
No, and look, we need Bruno as far forward as possible. Look at what happened at Leeds. The only person creating anything was Bruno, and as it has been all season, he's got 3 more assists or 4 more assists that he wants, and let's hope he gets a couple of those against Chelsea. Look, Rich, on paper, I think that's a strong enough squad. The questions are: is Mainu available to start? If he isn't available to start, who then fulfills that role? And I think that's the only question, really. The rest are kind
Yeah.
of things
Also,
so far.
Garnacho. We haven't even talked about Garnacho, have we?
Who?
Yeah, exactly. When people talk about this one, and then thank you for the comment and thanks for watching, saying avoid a Garnacho goal, that would matter the most. I would say that when I was talking about Garnacho last season, say if we avoid a Garnacho goal, we probably just need to avoid Garnacho taking about 15 shots because it might take about that many for him to score. I might, uh, if he scores in the weekend, I will massively regret this, obviously. But I read a story yesterday saying Chelsea are looking at trying to sell him
Yeah.
actually, and also apparently Garnacho's deleted all his Chelsea socials or like references to Chelsea, and has been like posting Man United stuff. I was thinking, was there ever a player that was literally, literally the worst media trained player you've ever had? That he's just,
It's just
and
mad.
he's just not our problem anymore.
No.
It's not our issues.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad it's not our problem anymore. But it's kind of like, you grow up, don't you? And you learn. You make mistakes and you learn. This guy just wants to keep making
It
mistakes.
made me laugh, not because I care. It just made me laugh that people will. It goes under the radar a little bit, but it's slightly humorous where you think that the way the situation played out, I thought, okay, maybe you're going to learn from this. And uh, I don't know. I mean, Chelsea was a strange club to go to.
Yeah, yeah.
He
Well,
might be missing us. I mean, I did say that if you leave Manchester United, It's genuinely a step down. Okay, Cristiano Ronaldo went to Real Madrid. That's literally the only thing, isn't it? Like if you leave Manchester United, it's usually a step down. And because Man United aren't going to sell you to a top Premier League team, so it's going to be you're not going to be going on somewhere amazing. So I don't know what he was expecting. Do you think Garnacho starts? I mean, he's not been playing many games.
No, I think they'll bring him on as a sub if need be. Um, yeah, I don't see him starting at all really. Neto's there, isn't he? And Estevar's back as well. So and then you've got Palmer. So I don't think he gets in ahead of any of those. He said, well, Palmer he wouldn't get into his position anyway. But yeah, I don't think he starts at all. And if he
Do
makes,
you look at this and think that, like, who are you worried about with Chelsea? Like, we haven't really talked about Chelsea, but people are concerned. And I was thinking, I think Palmer, when people look at him and link him to Chelsea, he is one of these players that is maybe, he's not happy always with his role, could be a bit inconsistent sometimes. Is this one of those games where I remember Cunha always used to step up against us if he does want a Man United move, which is speculation by the press because it makes a nice story, then he could potentially be a problem for us, given like uh, possibly some of our inexperience in certain areas.
um, is it worth putting names to the Blue Dots just to kind of see what that team looks like?
Yeah, we could do. Could
So,
do.
yeah,
I'll try and guess what sort of Chelsea. Or maybe I'll go by the last Chelsea game and
yeah,
just
the
put
Man
some names
City.
in.
Yeah,
I mean, I kind of lose track a little bit of who are Chelsea players these days because they've about 100. But
so
we'll go for
we've got
maybe
Santos as
I'll
well.
yeah. Who are you worried about then? If you discuss Chelsea, I'll just add a few names to the lineup.
I think Casado is going to be tough and commanding in midfield. I think that's going to be someone that we have to navigate. Um, Esteval, I quite like him as a player, and I think Neto will cause us problems. Palmer has always got it in him. He's there, Bruno, really, isn't he? And then Joao Pedro will cause us a lot of problems too. So they're the key players. It's midfield up. I mean, Coquerel is probably one of the best left backs in the league. So he'll be interesting. It's strange they've got Gerard Hato, who's a left back playing as a makeshift centre back. I think that's where they kind of fall. I don't really rate Fofana, and I think that pairing is where we exploit. Um, and they've got Gusto on the right side. Yeah, I think they're the players I would be looking at and think they're the ones that could cause us problems. They're the players that we need to navigate and get a foot ahead of. And they generally have a strong bench, don't they, as well? Well, I say strong bench. They've got
I think
delay.
they have a lot of options to put it that way. They have a lot of options.
Yeah,
I think Hato in there as well. Yeah, defensively, I always feel like they've got mistakes in them.
yeah. And Astavow would be playing alongside Casado, and then you've
But
got
one thing we should say, I've been pretty I think he's been very good this season. João Pedro.
yeah. And on the left,
They've actually got some. Maybe they're not really performing as well as they look on paper individually, but they've got some good players in attack.
yeah. They've got some great players in attack. That's the thing, but they just can't seem to get it together. And that's ever since Rossen has come in, they've just looked a shadow of the team that they were.
So I'll go by the lineup they put out against City, and I'm not sure if they might change things a little bit.
I think where Santos is, you'll probably have Enzo. I think Enzo comes in instead of Santos, and I think that's going to be interesting.
Do you get the feeling that if you're going to assess Chelsea, are they just underinvested in centre backs for a while? Because when we look at our team, we always I think we always point out that we just haven't really invested in we haven't invested in midfield for a long time, and when we have done, we just haven't got players that are good enough. Like we got like Agate wasn't ideal. I'm going to go through some of the comments. I think Danny B. Sorry, actually, I think someone put a line of Matty. I'm trying to find it in the comments about we can compare it to what we got. And he said, Lamans, you got Dallo, Heaven, Shaw, Mazraoui. We've got those. Casemiro, Mainu. I think we've got. I think you've actually got the same
Same,
lineup.
same lineup,
Actually, the
yeah.
same lineup.
And it's not bad, is it? That you look at that squad. I wouldn't have looked at that squad and thought, "Oh, that looks like we're going to be up against it." If again for me, it's key if Mainu starts. Um, if he starts, I think we're good. I think we're good for a great game. To be fair, and I just want to see these players turn up. I just want to see the defenders turn up. Look, they've got it in them. Those defenders that we're looking at, they're not awful players. They're really, some of them are really good, and some of them are senior players. And Heaven is great at conducting from the back, so I think that's quite exciting. That'll be quite exciting to see. Casemiro and Mainu are a great pivot, and then it just frees up. It frees up Cunha, Bruno, Ahmed, and Biemo just to play their football. And that's what I'd like to see. I'd really like us to see on the front foot against Chelsea, really go at them early, ruffle a few feathers, because I think once the first goal goes in against Chelsea, I think that's when they start to collapse. And I think that's what we need to do.
Do you find it a little bit strange that Chelsea seem to be falling apart a little bit? Like three straight defeats when it gets to the business end of the season, and they changed the manager already. The new one's under pressure because they've got lots of options. When you look at it, Estevar's been good. Palmer, now he's back, and you've got Neto, who's dangerous. João Pedro, but you could probably take most of these players out, and you'd have another bench of like a lot of players to choose from that are very experienced. And the strength is the midfield. Like Caicedo, Enzo is something that they spent a lot of money on that. And when you look at the rest of the team, you just think that they've gone. They seem to keep buying. Like, why did they buy Gittins? And when you look at Gittins and also Garnacho, that's 100 million spent. And you look at like they could have like got serious defensive upgrades, and they would have been a different team. Because sometimes it is about they fall apart a bit, isn't it? Like you said, they fall apart during games.
Well, the Chelsea, there's two things going on. I mean, like, Enzo and a couple of senior players aren't happy with Rosner. So I think there's issues in the dressing room. I think there are issues in the dressing room with senior players, prominent players. If your captain's carrying on like that, that's going to have a ripple effect on the team. So I think that's an issue. As soon as they score a goal, I think the heads go down because the leadership isn't there. The leadership is saying that our manager's not good enough. The football we're playing isn't good enough, and it's not going to change until he goes. So I think there's some of that murmuring going on. And then you've also got the fans that are quite angry. They've got their protests going up. They've written an open letter to the board where they've said a load of things. Or they put key points about does the club accept that sport confidence in the current leadership model and direction has fallen to an unacceptably low level. There's specific changes about clarity and accountability in their leadership and decision making, and there are so many different points. So I think there's a lot of pressure, and I think it's starting to come into their game. It's partly in their game from players, but there's a lot of outside noise. There's uncertainty about this manager. Will he even be here next season? Are players buying into the way he plays? Because he hasn't changed too much dramatically in terms of shape, but there's something obviously not working, and I think that's been their issue. And we need to go there tomorrow and exploit that. We really need to exploit that. We really need to. They've got their protest tomorrow, which is going to be interesting. And that's going to kick off before. That's already having a pot shot at the leadership. Are players able to shy away from that noise? That's the other issue.
How confident do you feel, like based on like what we're looking at the respective teams? You'd imagine once you go beyond this, Man United, like their bench options are going to be a little bit more limited than Chelsea. Chelsea will have obviously like almost like a lot of players to choose from. But I think first 11, I think there's like it's a reasonable matchup. Like we've got some issues, but Chelsea hasn't been playing particularly well. Yeah, they got different issues.
Do you know? I know they've got. Look, I know they've got about 9,000 players at their club, right? But when I look at their bench, I'm not overly. I don't think, oh God, because you look at it. You've got Mark Gay, you've got Lavia. Okay, he's fair enough. But the other players are like Garnacho and Delip are the other players they normally bring on, and I kind of look at that and think, doesn't really kind of make me think, they may get a late goal from those players. So I'm not too worried about their bench. I think Enzo won't play out of his skin. I think his nose is out of joint. And so if your captain's doing that, that's going to have an impact on the team. I think we can win this, Rich. And I know the odds are completely against us because that's been the noise. But when I actually look at this team and I look at those players and I look at what's going on at Chelsea and what has been going on and who's returning and what he may bring in terms of Enzo and his mentality, which is very critical. I think we can exploit that. I think we just need to make them feel nervous. We need to get an early goal and make them feel nervous and then just keep going at them. All I want from our team is to have intensity tomorrow. We need to fight with so much intensity. I think if we play like that, do you remember how we were playing the first couple of games? The reason why we were winning was we were fast and paced. We didn't give the team a breath, and we were disciplined. And I just want that back tomorrow. And I think there's enough players on that pitch that can do that.
I was going to agree and say when we were talking about the Leeds game, I was not surprised how Leeds played. I was expecting a really difficult game from Leeds, and I thought that this was probably I didn't. If you look like I would ignore the league table, and I would say that you ignore the league table, Leeds will probably be a more difficult game than Chelsea because of like the way they play. Certainly you could make it say the games are similar in difficulty. There's no way Leeds was going to be an easy match, and I think Man United need to take this game very seriously as well. It's not. No one's thinking it's going to be easy, and that's almost better. I think that we know it's not, but also because of the if we did get a win, it opens up a big gap against Chelsea and makes it very difficult for Chelsea to catch us. If we get a point, we keep a big points gap to Chelsea as well. Worst case scenario, Chelsea wins and they're 4 points behind with 5 games to go. I think so. It's not a disaster, but we've got a good opportunity here to try and get, particularly as now potentially we might have other injury issues at some point in the rest of the season. And saying that Matt is saying we can win if we beat their midfield press. They got strength in midfield. I remember probably be a few months ago, I spoke to. I'm trying to think of there was a Chelsea. He was a bit of a content creator, but I think he did do work with Talk Sport and wasn't really doing much on YouTube. And I had a conversation with him, and he said his view of Manchester United and Chelsea signings was that Manchester United are actually buying better quality players. Like we're not buying like Chelsea are buying a vast number of players, like you said, but
Yeah.
they seem to be hitting a certain level that the players are all young, and then when they do start showing signs of improvement, they're going to be sold for a profit. So they keep recycling players, but they don't really buy. They haven't bought a player that's like Cunha and Buemo or that sort of age that they're going to keep at the club. They seem to be buying like a Garnacho, hoping he improves, buying like a Gittins, hoping he improves, buying like another player and selling them for a profit. And I'm just thinking that maybe, Chelsea have kind of hit this level where they keep finishing what fourth or fifth in the league. I don't think they're capable of actually mounting anything more than that at the moment. They're buying good players, but they never really keep all the players together. And they've got quantity over quality in some positions where they do have, like you said, they've got loads of bench options, but they haven't got the scary options. And maybe João Pedro is one that worked out better than people thought. But they've got lots of other options like Delap's not really been talked about, not getting in the game much. Garnacho, I don't think Gittins has done loads either. And all these players that they have spent quite a lot of money on doesn't really get talked about. I mean, I might, massively regret this if a few of the players we talked about score goals. Like, if Fofana comes up, scores a headed goal, and then you have off the bench. But I just don't think over the course of the season we've seen anything like that. It's we've been, I think Chelsea have been quite underwhelming. Chelsea collect players like Panini stickers.
That's what I just read as well.
They do, don't they? They do.
Crazy.
I remember. I know a few. I know a few Chelsea YouTubers, and they were talking about Garnacho when we were trying to sell Garnacho in the January. Do you remember? We had all these like links with Garnacho for
Yeah.
like 50, 60, 70 million, and we were talking about how much is it going to go for. And these people, I spoke to them. They were like, "No way do we want Garnacho. He's rubbish." And they didn't change their mind when they sold him. They still were not happy the club bought him. And I just thought, well, let's see how that works out. I kind of expected something similar to we saw from Sancho. I was actually hoping they'd keep Sancho, but no, it wasn't to be, unfortunately. And they were annoyed. And now they've got an issue where they can't really sell him for a profit. And but they also looked at their squad. This was the funny thing. They looked at their squad and said, "Well, where does he get into the team? Like, is he going to bench Neto?"
Yeah. And this is one of the things that the
Just
Chelsea
to say,
sport.
Matty, unfortunately, Matty, I can't monetize the channel again until we hit 500 subscribers and 3K watch hours. The 3K watch hours is a lot of watch hours. If you consider, like, say, 10 or 15 people watch and you stream for an hour, that's 10, 15 watch hours. You've got to do that 200 times. So anyone that's able to watch previous streams, which have had excellent guests and hopefully good content, then please do that. That lots of people have been messaging me about certain things. Like I said, that there's not much I can do for about probably a few months. Actually, not a few months. There's not much I can do at the moment until we kind of hit certain targets. I used to really enjoy raiding other channels, sending people over. I can't do that until we probably hit 1,000 subscribers. So please subscribe, share the stream. We'd love to be able to offer these things. We just can't do it at the moment, unfortunately. It's something that I'm hoping to try and be able to do some point in May is my best guess, best case scenario. But again, any share, subscribe really, really helps. Ed85, welcome to chat, Ed. Thanks for tuning in. He says players are going to Chelsea for money, while players are coming to Manchester United for the love of their club. And I think Ed's got a really good point. If I cast my mind back, Delap said, "I want to play for." No, Delap wanted to. So what did he? Do you remember what he said? That Delap wanted to play, get regular first team football, which made me laugh because he's going to Chelsea.
Yeah.
And then he said he wants to. I think he wanted to maybe move certain area in the UK, but also he wanted to play for England. And I was thinking, right, all these things you're talking about, if you want to play football, you join Chelsea. They've got so many players. Like he wanted a big payday. And like Quenda was linked to Man United. He went to Chelsea for massive money that we don't know how it's going to end up being. But Ed's got a very good point that Sasko came out and said, no, who actually no, and Mbeumo came out and said, I want to play for Manchester United. Cunha said there's only one club he wants to play for, and he said he was like a Man United fan. This is true. I mean, you don't finish 15th and get mercenaries, do you? Well, I say no, sorry, that's wrong. You don't finish 15th and get players that join you thinking, great, we're going to get Champions League football. These people come to Manchester United because either they support the club to some extent or they see the potential in Manchester United. They like. I think we're lucky, aren't we? That this is not every club can finish 15th and get some of the signings we got. The biggest one was probably Sesko because Newcastle were so. Do you remember the stream the day before we signed Sesko? All the Newcastle fans were in the comments saying, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about?" I lost a lot of. They weren't friends. They didn't know them. There was a lot of random people on the internet that thought I was talking rubbish, saying that we were going to sign Sesko because their point was we've offered more money than Man United. Why would he go there? And it's the same with like Chelsea. Chelsea will say, right, here's an 8-year contract. Man United don't want to hand out an 8-year contract. But how many years do they give Delap? I mean, can you imagine if Man United had given him
Oh
a
God.
7-year contract and you look at what he's done this season?
Yeah. It's
It
crazy.
makes
It's great, and and just on what you're saying, the Chelsea Sports Trust Board. One of the key things they said was, "How does a club intend to demonstrate that its current strategy can deliver sustained sporting success, financial stability, and a recognisable Chelsea identity in a way that rebuilds supporter trust?" So everyone is having a go who's linked with his team is having a go. The players must be thinking, what are you doing bringing in players on 7-year contracts or 8-year contracts? What does that actually mean for me? I mean, could you imagine if they've done that for the last 2 seasons, the last 3 seasons. And so you come in as the first batch of that and you think you're going to be playing for 7 years or so, and you're cemented, and then another batch of players come in the following season, and then another batch of players come in the following season after that. I mean, what does that look like to you as a player? Because you're thinking, well, what does that mean for me as a player? They've signed these players on just as long contracts as me, and they'll obviously want to get value out of them. So it just doesn't make any sense. And it's like I said, it's like the football equivalent of eBay. It really is, and it's just, it's crazy. And the model doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't. I think they tried to exploit a loophole, but then they almost became obsessed about exploiting that loophole as many times as they possibly could without any financial repercussions. And lo and behold, now the financial repercussions are starting to set in. Now the football success has started to wane. All of those decisions have a massive spotlight on them. And it doesn't make good. I don't think it makes good for team chemistry, because you just don't know. It makes you feel insecure as a player. The
Yeah,
idea
I remember
of a long contract
probably
gives stability, but it doesn't give stability.
like 2 years ago, Chelsea used to almost have two separate teams. One played in the Conference Cup on I think it must have been, was it Thursday night? And then one team would play the Premier League matches. And you almost like look at it and think, a bit disappointing for you. You're a conference player, whereas the other players are the Premier League players. And you look at it and think Chelsea have almost got like two teams. And then now it's different because obviously they've got more competition. And the issue is going to be that Chelsea don't really ever, maybe they don't spend or they don't acquire players of the level that are going to compete with, like, for some reason, this is what I find really strange is no one ever questions why are Chelsea not in a title race, because they spend like the amount of money they spend, the amount of new players going in and out of the club, but they're literally
It's over two
fifth every
billion,
season.
2 billion, and it's just crazy, isn't it? And yeah,
And it seems that they're not actually. Uh, this is probably the thing that worried Man United fans, and this is why I was like asking the opinion of a couple of Chelsea fans to see what they thought, because it looked like some of the things we were doing as a club, going for younger players, and we started to seem to battle with Chelsea. A lot of people were looking at that and saying, "Are we going to become the next Chelsea?" And I was saying, how do you feel as a Chelsea fan? Do you look at Manchester United and think this was us 2 years ago? Are we replicating what you're doing? And his reply was just, I think you're going for better quality players, and I don't. And I think you're actually setting it. So Man United fans are suspicious of our owners, like, and I'm suspicious of our owners. But that was kind of the independent view from rival fan bases. They feel like we're actually building in the right direction, and it's not about like saying, but United side Dice says spending never equates to winning. It's always like how you spend it. And United have spent quite big, really, under Eric Ten Hag, quite big, but we spent quite badly, and that was the problem. And I think what we need to do now is identify the targets we've identified, but spend quite big then, because they're actually quite good targets. So it is interesting that Chelsea fans are less suspicious to Man United. And when if you look at it, on the face of it, in a short kind of amount of time, we've gone from 15th back up the league a lot. And you could argue actually that Spurs, they probably spent a similar amount to us last summer. They bought some quite expensive signings in as well. They spent a bit too much on making sure Mathis Tell stayed there and Xavi Simmons and other signings they made,
mm,
and
yeah,
they look dreadful, like
yeah.
really bad. So it's a bit risky. I know we said about an hour, so we can take some final questions if you want to. We can do some. We can do a score prediction, see like an optimism tester.
Yeah, just before, I've got a question for you. Worst case scenario, we lose tomorrow. Worst case scenario, it's not going to happen. But let's just look, match hasn't happened, so we can say whatever we
Yeah,
want, right? Um, what does that mean for Carrick? It's an interesting question. What does that mean for team mentality?
oh, it's really difficult, isn't it? But I think maybe it depends on the nature of the defeat, and if we got completely dismantled, it would probably be. I've said this a few times that under Michael Carrick, we haven't really been, no, we haven't lost like 3-0, 4-0, have we? If we had a defeat like that, then it would be. I think it would be a big blow to. I think at the moment, like the news articles are saying, like you sent something earlier tonight, which I wasn't able to put into the slides, but you said that the journalists are saying. I think Ornstein said Carrick's the favourite,
Yeah,
but a very bad defeat would suddenly it might make them. I think they are looking for alternatives, but at the moment, it would make them a bit concerned. I think the overall feeling from Man United at the moment is they like the tactical approach, and we saw very heavy defeats in previous managers. We haven't seen that yet, which is a good thing.
yeah.
Obviously, if we lose narrowly, then Matt is gone for a win. Though, then I think it still depends on probably. It's Chelsea away, isn't it? It's really difficult. If we lose the game, Chelsea are a team that they won the World Club Cup last season. They're a Champions League team for a few years. On paper, though, they should have the squad to no, they've lost 3 games in a row, but they're due a performance. I don't think it should be the end of the world. The problem is we're talking about it after a Leeds defeat, aren't we? If Man United had beaten Leeds and we lost to Chelsea, it wouldn't really be a consideration.
I think it's also like who else wins if that if the if we were to lose, what does Liverpool do? What does Aston Villa do? And sometimes they do nothing. You know, they've been so up and down themselves that it may not be the hits that
No, because I think when we lost to Leeds, that coincided with Aston Villa. Did they draw with Nottingham Forest? I'm
they
trying to think.
drew and Liverpool won, didn't they?
Liverpool won, Chelsea lost
Chelsea,
badly,
yeah.
Arsenal lost as well. It was only really Man City, and they were a decent bit ahead. So no, look, I suppose if we play late Saturday a kickoff, which I really hate, and maybe at that time a few matches have already happened. But realistically, when Brian's still in the chat and he said, "Would I take a draw?" Maybe it's one of those games where a draw would actually be okay because you keep this. It's not what I want. No, I don't want to play for a draw. But you'd imagine that this game could be one of those games that's like 2-2, like Cody said. We definitely could concede a couple of goals, and I think with the players on the pitch we've got, you could definitely see us getting that sort of result.
Yeah, it's interesting because on the Saturday we play none of the teams. Like Liverpool don't play until Sunday. They play Everton away, so there's their big derby, and that'll be a tough match, I suspect. Man City, Arsenal again in the evening or 4:30, and Villa play at 2 against Sunderland, which will be an interesting game. So yeah, so it's we basically it's we'll be the first out of that first top 5 to play. We haven't won at Chelsea since 2020. They're the stats, but stats are stats. I'm gonna agree with Matty. I think we nicked this. I think it's going to be possibly tight, but I don't mean tight in terms of slow, defensive, boring. I think it's going to be quite a fast-paced match, and I think there's going to be several chances. But I think we nick it 2-1.
Yeah, I'm thinking with this game, I was thinking score draw. And I was thinking when I used to watch really tough battles, late 90s, early 2000s, 1-1 was a good prediction. I think given like the 2-1, 2-2 is going to be where I think it might be. I'm going to agree with Coyote and say could be like 2-2 possibly. You got 1-1 from Bilal,
A Desmond 2.
similar. I don't think I think most people are looking at it thinking that I think everybody's looking at it thinking, look at Chelsea's defence,
Yeah.
that there's definitely an opportunity to score goals. I think what would be interesting is how do we approach the game given the Leeds game? Like we didn't really get out of the blocks, did we? We looked quite bad. We looked like we weren't really prepared for that, and Leeds exploited that. I don't see Chelsea being. We expect. Do you remember when we talked about the Leeds game and we were talking about saying players like Dominic Calvert-Lewin are going to cause massive problems. I think Palmer and João Pedro cause problems, but different sort of problems. I don't think they start bullying our players, which we saw against Leeds. And I don't think we start seeing those sort of challenges. I think it's a different sort of battle.
Yeah, and Palmer's been a bit hot and cold this season, so it depends which Palmer turns up.
He's a Man United fan, apparently, isn't he? So does he want? Does he want to? Does he want to like stop us getting Champions League football if he wants to move to us, or does he? No, obviously, this isn't a factor. But sometimes with Cunha, I do think like with Cunha, he really stepped up when he played Man United. I mean, I have to admit, obviously, I don't watch every single Wolves game. I didn't like Wolves as a team because they were hard to play against. And I think Cunha was that guy that was really stepping up. Do you remember Cunha just like I think he sat YORO down, or he just completely made our team look a bit mediocre a
Yeah.
year ago. And I was like, get him in our team because I don't want to play against him again. And I was thinking with Palmer. I'm wondering whether he might step it up a little bit. He's inconsistent, but I would be worried about him.
You know what I'd love tomorrow? I'd love a goal from Ahmed, right? Or at least at the very least an assist. I want a goal from Mbumo. I think he needs to get a goal. I want Sesko to come off the bench and get a goal, and I'd love an assist from Cunha. Of course, we all want Bruno to get the assist too because we want him to bet
So
the
you're
record.
looking like, what's the score going to be with all this? That we're going to scrub
Well,
it.
why not go for 3-1? I mean, look, they like to ship 3 goals or more, so why not go for 3-1? And I just hope we come off the blocks early and just have a right go at them. They're there for the taking. They really are there for the taking. They're nervous. As soon as the first goal goes in, they are nervous. So why not? There's a lot of noise going on at Chelsea. The fans are disgruntled. Some of the players on the pitch are disgruntled. The captain is disgruntled. Exploit it. Really exploit it. Why not?
Yeah, who are Everton? I hope Everton do us a favour.
They
Who
play.
are Everton playing?
So it's the derby, isn't it? The against Liverpool.
I'm not. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure Everton will be able to do. I know Everton do like obviously try the best against Liverpool, but I'm not sure we can be. I think Liverpool are going to qualify for Champions League football. I think Chelsea are the team that could be like missing out.
I mean, there's a chance because people keep saying to me Liverpool, that they're jumping. I look at Liverpool and I was never scared about Liverpool, to be honest, because they've been so up and down. I think they win one Premier League game every 3 or 4 games. They're just
Yeah, they were poor against. Do you know with Liverpool? I think it's like history and track record over years. I just don't trust them. Like I just don't trust them to be. Do you remember like about it must have been about 3 years ago, 4 years ago? Do you remember when they went on an amazing run and won
yeah.
like the last 5 games or something to sneak into the Champions League's position? And I just think Liverpool they'll get over the line. I think. I'm more surprised that Chelsea have allowed themselves to get into this position.
I mean,
Lamans hasn't allowed more than 2 goals in a game against United in 2026, says Gregory. I suppose the big defeat was Brentford, wasn't it? Did they score? I can't remember how many goals they scored, but that was probably.
just on this Liverpool, since the 10th of March, they've only won one match in all competitions, and that was for Fulham. They've lost every other game. So that's what I mean about Liverpool. Their form is atrocious. Their form is awful. So I'm more. I think it's a tussle between United and Villa, really, just for third and fourth. I think Liverpool will come up short again and again. It'll be interesting. They come to Old Trafford, of course, in one of their matches. I'm looking forward to that. It'd be lovely to do the double over them. It really would. It'd be lovely to do the double over Chelsea too.
Any sort of final. If Phil's got like sort of final questions, any sort of final thoughts regarding what we're going to see? Obviously, tomorrow it's going to be a very late night stream, so it's hopefully it's going to be a bit more positive than the lead stream. That's what I'm hoping for. Let's see if anyone's got any final questions, just the last like minute or two, then let me know. It seems that no one's predicting a Chelsea defeat, so people seem to be genuinely a bit more confident. I think there was a bit more apprehension for the Leeds match, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I'm excited, really. I was as the day was panning out today, I was hearing about, it was just bad news after more news. Lost to Martinez appeal. He's definitely going to be out for 3 matches. Yesterday, we were notified about Maguire. Then we were notified about Yoro. He didn't sound too concrete about Mainu, but kind of having gone through this stream and looked at the players on the pitch and reminding myself who we're playing and what their form is like. I'm quite hopeful for this match tomorrow, Rich. I really am.
Yeah, sometimes the tactic boards helps a bit, doesn't it? Because you look at the team, look at the opposition, and look at things you're worried about. And I remember looking at, we were just talking. I think we were talking casually about the Leeds match. We were doing a different stream, and I think we were all of us were looking at thinking Dominic Calvert-Lewin, he's going to be a problem. He'll be getting stuck into people.
Yeah.
And what do we see? We pretty much saw what we were expecting. Yeah, I agree. Do you agree? Like with say, just a quick finishing point. Do you agree with the lineup we got on the screen? That's kind of what we ended up with. We might disagree with which positions they're in the back four possibly, but do you see that as being pretty much what we see on the pitch?
Yeah, I think that's a great lineup. I think there's pace in there. There's creativity. There's great defensive prowess from all our players. There's great control. There's give and go. There's triangles, rondos, everything. I think it's going to be very, very. It can be a very effective performance from us. Intensity. That's all I need. Intensity. Yeah, and Sesko comes on as a sub, and as you said as well, Mount can come on. He's got a point to prove. And also, if you kind of just need someone to hold up for the last 10 minutes, you can bring on a Xerxes just to kind of play the game out.
I forgot about Xerxes. He might
Just
be
be
somebody
present.
that is actually fairly effective off the bench if
Yeah,
if you're looking at just someone that can hold keep possession and maybe progress the ball a bit through midfield. So
yeah,
again, I don't think they're options you bring on thinking, right, let's win the game, but they're useful options, aren't they, that
yeah.
you could use. So I think I just saw Bilal saying, no, Sesko will not be in centre back, and we're not going to see Casemiro as centre back. We're not going to see Agati as centre back. We're going to use centre backs as centre backs. If Michael Carrick wants to do something different, that's up to him. But on this channel, we will not be putting non-centre backs in centre back roles.
I
It's just
On one stream, people were talking about putting Casemiro in the back, and I said, "You don't need to do that. Why are you putting Casemiro as a centre back?" I'd heard that and I was just like, "No, it doesn't make any sense."
if you put
Keep it
Casemiro in
simple.
as a centre back, then we start running out of
And
players higher up the pitch.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
We haven't got the depth, guys. We haven't got the depth. Now, will we back live tomorrow? There's probably going to be something in the morning, news based, and then obviously it's going to be late night Saturday with match reaction at 10 p.m. I'm not sure if there's going to be match day content before then. It might depend on if a certain Norwegian is available. Not Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but the one we know a bit closer, Helgi. Maybe he's interested in
The more
doing a watch
infamous one.
along, but we will see. We will see. Otherwise, it'll be a good one. Hopefully, I mean it's the worst kickoff time in my opinion, but fortunately, that's what they're doing. Yeah, ways are better actually. Let's go back to the other screen so we can see ourselves a little bit more.
I don't. I look like hell.
Uh,
I'm so well, but hey.
you probably look better than Delit's looking at the moment. There's no thanks, Wiz better. He's not feeling very well, but great job coming on and talking about Man United. This is kind of like the catalyst for the conversation. Yoro's out, massive game for Man United, important game against Chelsea that are an annoying team. We've mostly gone positive and said, I think we're going to get a draw. Wizardbet thinks we're going to win that game. And a lot of people watching think we're going to win. If you're new to the channel, as always, we're restarting. Please don't forget to click the like and don't forget to subscribe if you're a new viewer. And if you're watching and you want to try and help push us back to where we used to be, then watch the video because I think that YouTube just needs to accrue a certain amount of watch hours to just tick some boxes, and then we can like do other things, and that would be great. Hopefully, we can do things like that. Things that people want to do. Hopefully, we can do that next month. Isabella, hope you feel better tomorrow, and hopefully, we'll I look forward to it. We got like over 24 hours before we start moaning or celebrating about the game. So plenty of rest time. Big thanks to everybody as well. Gregory, Kazi, I'm trying to think who else is in the chat so far. United Sadai was in, Bilal's in, Cody is in. We've had, I'm trying to think, my mind's gone suddenly. Matty is in as well, so loads of legends in tonight. If I missed anybody, Stephanie was in earlier as well. Ryan was in earlier, so thanks all you guys as well. And we'll be back tomorrow. We can all be in fun hats if you want to be. I've got a hat near me. I can put a hat on as well. If that's there you go.
Mad Hatters.
Yeah, we can put, if it makes the experience better for Gregory, then we'll do that.
Bring your
If
hat.
yeah, we'll do that with that. I might have a drastic haircut, which people think isn't possible, but you might see it. I could prove you wrong. Take it easy, guys. Have a great night. Enjoy the match tomorrow if you can, depending on how it goes. Oh, Jim, I forgot. Jim, big up to you, Jim, as well. And we will catch you guys tomorrow, possibly with hats. We don't know at this point in time, but we'll see. And saying, guys, have a great rest of your evening and weekend. We will see you tomorrow, though.